Theory, Issue 1, Counting. Darkness covered everything. Shadows fell across the room from the rain. They each became lost as they joined the great shade. Beads of violently flung water struck the large window that opened the room to the view of the city. They sang with rattling thunder and serenaded a young man who sat awake in his bed. The sounds of the apartment joined in the song, humming from the refrigerator, the heater in its constant exhalation, and the occasional falling of ice from the ice maker. The young man's eyes darted across the tempered glass and caught sight of every drop that timidly knocked. Late hours of the night burned his eyes and attempted to pull his lids closed. He adamantly resisted. The light of the moon crested into the apartment and shone over the edge of the bed sheets. From the periphery of his vision, the young man amused himself by moving his toes under the cover. He even began to smile. The raindrops against the window exchanged their knocking tone for a subtle chuckle. The laughing radiated across the shadows and met his ears, striking his smile from his face and focusing him again on his count. He began to gently rock in anger. His jaw had clenched firm and his brow rattled as he strained himself to keep counting. The young man, Theory, calmed himself and caressed his partner's shoulder as he continued his task. He mouthed the numbers and slowly tapped at the bed sheets. The deep laughter from earlier had stopped. The room seemed to focus on him, waiting for something. Theory snuck gazes of his surroundings and caught glimpses of movement in the shadows. The laughter sneaks out into the room again. Theory huffed and placed his palms down firmly on the man laying over his lap. He resolved himself to finish the count, seemed to tally each drop before it could strike the window. In an anxious fit, he lifted his body from the bed, propelling himself forward slowly. He could feel his hand pressing into the mattress and into the back of his lover. The man in his lap woke up, silently observing the rain, the shadows, and the voices from the dark as they taunted Theory. He whispered curses, and his eyes sought out the demons of the night. He was Aiden. His arms slowly coiled around Theory's waist, pressuring him back into his seat. He comforted him, allowing him to know that he was now awake as well. They silently adventured together back into the late-night rain count. Aiden traced the path of departed drops as he hurried to keep up. The voice from the shadows called out to both of them, seeking to shake their resolve, to turn them away from the number he'd bartered for peace. They did their best to shut the voices out, passively listening to each other. Hearing the others count, they collectively tallied 1,000 drops. The air in the room froze. The chanting from the dark, the slurs, the insults, ceased, and in their wake were birthed a series of snide remarks that shook the room. "Tomorrow night," it teased. "Tomorrow, we'll do it all again." The air settled, and both of the men continued to watch the window. Each trembled. Theory from anger, and Aiden in fear. Aiden shook himself from the situation and focused himself on bringing Theory back to rest, laying him down and hugging him. "Thank you," whispered Aiden. He held Theory's hand and watched the shadows over the top of his mate's curls. He saw the darkness contort and come to life in the form of a demon who waved and smirked at Aiden. His arms tightened around Theory, who was then alerted to the demon's game. His eyes sprang open, burning and smoldering lavender. The demon skittered back into the shadows, and the rest of the shadows that had risen, waiting for their turn to torment the couple, timidly laid themselves down and hid away from his crackling glare. Again, the night fell still, and the men relaxed into the bed. Aidan, although relaxed, nervously continued to watch the darkness. He wouldn't sleep much that night. The morning set upon the apartment gently. The rays of the sun caressed the room and fell softly over the ruffled sheets and teased the eyes of the men. The first to stir from the bed was Aidan. He crept from the sheets and tiptoed across the room to the kitchen. He gathered materials, preparing for the weekend breakfast of waffles and cartoons. Although he found it hard to get sleep after being tormented by the demons, he was still thankful to Theory for watching over him last night and allowing him to get to sleep first. Across the room, Theory stirred from his sleep, coaxed to life by the sound of cookware in motion. He rose to his feet, stumbling around the room and leering at everything, as if to find those demons in their hiding places from last night. He finished his search, focusing on Aidan. His frown turned into a shaky smile that settled itself into a neutral puff of fatigue. He crashed down into the couch to his right, swung his feet up over the arm of the chair. He covered his eyes and shook his head. "How'd you sleep?" Theory croaked with the weight of fatigue on his voice. Aidan quickly chirped over the counter that he slept very well. The lie was hurried over his lips and fell into Theory's ears so quickly that Theory had no choice but to be suspicious of it. He settled his head into the cushion of the armchair and reflected on the eyes of the demon. He hadn't felt them in the room after he'd scared them away. Aidan should have been okay. Theory tilted his head back and looked over the counter with cold eyes. He watched Aidan, trying him under a microscope. Aidan could feel his gaze, hot on his face, just as if his eyes were burning again. "I'm okay," Aidan said with a gentle tone. It's just creepy." "Creepy?" retorted Theory. "Yeah, creepy," quickly answered Aidan. Theory sat up in his seat, twisting around and focusing with wide eyes on his boyfriend. "What's creepy?" prodded Theory. "The fucking demons, and the laughing shadows, or the sacrifices in the middle of the night, and the glowing eyes," exploded Aidan. The expression on his face told Theory that he was stressed, tired of watching over his shoulder for devils. Theory paused. They both looked at each other and sulked. Theory plopped back down into his seat and watched Aidan. His hand flew back up and covered his eyes from the sun. Aidan glanced up at him, feeling that he might have actually said something hurtful. He paused, collecting himself and studying his mate. Had he actually hurt him? "I'm sorry. It's just a little overwhelming." Aidan sought to comfort Theory and walked over to him with a plate of waffle fragments. "We need a new waffle iron," Theory scoffed. Aidan nodded in agreement as he sat the plate down on his mate's lap. They sat down across the room from each other, focused on their breakfast while shyly studying the other. Theory, more than Aidan, seemed to poke his eyes across the room very carefully. He huffed and sank down into his seat. His eyes lost a bit of their life and he quickly finished off his food. "What are you doing today?" chirped Aidan. He watched as Theory got up to wash his plate. "I want to spend some time with you tonight." Theory looked back over his shoulder. "We spent last night together." Aidan shrugged. "Without the demons." Theory opened his mouth to talk, but there was something about his face that told Aidan he wasn't being taken seriously. Aidan picked back up. or the voices. Theory hadn't changed his expression, or the dancing shadows, or the satanic symbols, or the fucking murder sprees you go on. Theory wagged his finger. We don't talk about that. His theory. It's not that bad. Bullshit, snapped Aiden. Theory raised his hands in surrender and got quiet. He went over to the bed and threw himself down over the sheets. He coiled deeper into the covers, and he felt Aiden creep into the bed behind him. He was held by a strong embrace, and Aiden began to whisper in his ear. I just never really know with you, he explained with a gentle tone. I know. I know it's a package deal. I know I can't separate the good from the bad. Theory grimaced into the pillow, unable to deny that it wasn't easy being with him. I just need a bit more of the good. Aiden dug Theory out of the sheets and held him close. More of you. Theory relaxed and looked at Aiden. In his head, he heard a symphony of voices calling to him, chanting names. He smiled and hugged close to Aiden. The voices got louder and rattled around in his head. He could feel them scratching away at his thoughts, and moments of darkness fell upon him. How long? A voice inquired. Theory held his expression and pretended as best he could that it was just the two of them. Over Aiden's shoulder peered a figure, veiled in red. The figure tapped at its wrist, as if to draw attention to the time. You already know where the next one is, it teased. You could have gone last night, but he stopped you. Theory sat up, wide-eyed and shaken. The room was crowded with children. Each of them was covered in ashes and blood. Their eyes were pale, lifeless, and focused on him. He scanned the room and counted the faces. Each one of them were familiar. His body began to quiver and his mouth fell open with an anxious fit. His eyes began to pulse with lavender, and he felt rage boil up in his belly. The tall figure pointed at him, rattling his wrist covered in rusted bells. Burn it all. Burn it all and be free. Aiden was there, waiting for a reply. He laughed a little and combed through Theory's hair. More of me? Theory questioned. They paused there, and Aiden nodded at him. Theory smiled. I can do that.